Always great catching up with my next guest, Cory Sandhagen, the number 4 ranked bantamweight in the division. Getting a quick update here, and I know you were just in New York this past week for UFC 295. But Cory, how's everything? You're back home in Colorado now.
Yep, back home. Thank God. I was gone for a little bit before that trip. Even I was training out in DC with Ryan for a little bit, and then actually tomorrow I'm going out to train with Ton Lee for a couple days.
Nice.
But yeah, I just wanted to get in all the traveling that I had to get in before Thanksgiving, so that I can kind of have the rest of the year to spend some time working on some stuff.
Good. No, that definitely makes sense. Just sticking with New York, I heard you were involved in that whole bus thing that happened with Jamal Hill. How scary was that? Because I saw some of the videos from Brian Butler and from Jamal Hill. It looked like things were getting a little testy down there in New York.
Yeah, it got a little sketchy there for a second, to be honest with you. Yeah, I've never been so happy to see the police in my entire life. So yeah, so that was kind of an interesting feeling, but yeah, I mean, thank God we live in America where that doesn't get crazy out of hand for the most part. And but yeah, it got a little scary there for a second.
Well, Robbie Lawler was with you, right? Did you feel safe knowing that Robbie, like at any moment, could just end like a whole group of people?
Yeah, I mean, we had a pretty good lineup in the bus. Like it definitely wouldn't have been a good situation. I think
Yeah.
it escalated to the point where we were having to actually fight people. We had a pretty decent lineup in that bus, so I was worried, but.
Yeah, no, for sure. What was the lineup? So it was Jamal Hill, you, Robbie Lawler. Who else was in there?
We had one of the UFC staff, Zoila,
Oh yeah, used to fight in Bellator. Yeah, I remember her.
like a world champ kickboxer. So we had her with us. We had a couple of, just I think that those were kind of the only people that could really fight. But sometimes you need some front lines people too to take out the early people. So so yeah.
Kind of worked out. Just sticking with 295 as well. Main event, we had Yuri Yuri getting knocked out by Alex Pereira, I should say. What did you think of that? Some people felt like maybe it should have gone a little bit longer, but what was your take on Alex's performance and getting the title?
I thought Alex did good. I really like Yuri's style. It's really smooth and creative and awesome. It reminds me a lot of like my own. Um, I thought that Yuri was fighting super awesome, and then just gotten a couple of exchanges that he probably shouldn't have gotten in, even though he was on like the upper end of one of them. But that's kind of the fight sport, man. Like if you're gonna roll the dice like that, that's sometimes gonna be the outcome that you get.
And then just co-main event, Tom Aspinall knocking out Pavlovich. What did you think of that? Especially 2 weeks notice. Apparently he had a back injury too. Pretty incredible. He went out there and got the title.
Yeah, really crazy. Yeah, I mean, good for that guy, man. Like, it was cool to see him. I really have always liked watching people accomplish their dreams, whether it be like I don't watch movies or listen to music a ton, but like the Oscars and the Grammys and all of that stuff, as long as their speeches don't get too corny and political, I really love watching people like, just the happiness that they get from accomplishing like a lifelong dream. And that was kind of the same feeling that I got when I watched Tom win the belt, and so that was really cool. It's really inspiring, and I think that more than anything, I think that what this sport does better than a lot of the other ones that I've seen is it just inspires people more than some of them. So I think that was like a really cool thing to feel.
Yeah, you mentioned something there. You don't watch a lot of movies. I'm the same way. I just don't have time. I got 2 kids, but I do watch documentaries. I always make a point of doing that. Do you watch them as well, or is it just, are you off all that?
I watch documentaries. Usually, the documentaries that I end up watching are the serial killer
Oh,
murder.
same here. Yeah. I don't know why. Like I have no like desire to do any of that, but I find it interesting. So
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I like documentaries, I suppose. I kind of have been watching a lot of Rick and Morty lately. I get into things, and
yeah.
then I've been watching a lot of Rick and Morty lately. I've been reading sci-fi books lately, and yeah, I get really into things, and then they fall off, and then I get into a different thing, and then they fall off. So yeah.
There you go. Okay, so obviously you're training right now. It seems like you're healthy, right? Because obviously you had the injury after the last fight. What's the latest with you as far as when you'd like to fight and what the status is with your recovery?
Yeah, it's really hard to know, to be honest with you. The way that recovery is going right now, injuries like this, they always like turn corners, turn corners, turn corners. So my last corner that I turned was about 3 weeks ago, where I was actually able to train and not have to be super stressed about it, getting re-hurt or anything like that. So That was the last corner that I kind of felt. Now I'll train for a couple days. It'll get really, really sore, and then I got to pull back on it, and then a couple days more, pull back on it. So that's kind of where I am. It's really tough to kind of say because different doctors give you different answers of when you'll be okay. Like initially it was February, and you'll be, good enough to train hard, and then now it seems like they're telling me maybe at the end of the year I'll be able to start training hard, but regardless of when I come back, I'm going to be smart in the way that I come back because I definitely don't want this impacting anything. The caliber of fighter that I'm fighting now is really high, and the stakes are really high. Like, it's either going to be for a belt next or be one away from a belt next. So, yeah, I'm just doing my best to make sure that I'm going to be really smart, get a full training camp where I don't have to stress about the thing because I'm just in a really high stakes scenario right now.
Do you even have like a ballpark of when you could come back? Like, the doctor's giving you any indication about when maybe that could happen, like spring, summer? Because you want to be careful, right? Like you said, you don't want to rush back and then re-injure it. So like in your head, you kind of have an idea of like when that next fight could possibly be, like if you could pick.
If I could pick the earliest, I think if I'm being optimistic, I think April would be optimistic.
Which is, I think UFC 300. That would be pretty cool, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess we'll see about that. I also, like the next title fight in the division is really interesting for me. I just got done beating Chito earlier this year pretty significantly. If he wins, that could be a pretty, sellable, easy storyline to pitch. And then, the me and O'Malley fight is one that I know that every single person that follows the sport has been asking for years. So that could be a potential fight too. So I think I'm in a fairly decent place with, probably looking at the next title fight for me, maybe.
Yeah, I would agree with that. What was your reaction to seeing Chito getting the fight? Because like you just mentioned there, we're 2 fights removed from you putting on a pretty dominant win over him. I know he got the win over Pedro Munoz in between there, but it's kind of like a clogged division as well. Were you surprised that he ended up getting the shot, or what was your reaction to that?
I guess I was a little surprised, but I guess the other options, Cheeto's probably the best option out of all of them. He technically does have a win over him, so it's not like it's so far out of the realm of, being able to accept it. So, and then especially when you look at all the other guys, like, should Aljamain get a title shot back? It's like, or a rematch. It's like, like if you get knocked out in round 2, I don't know, and then.
Yeah.
There's, of course, Merab, but I think Merab isn't in the best place with the UFC because of him and the Aljo thing. Cejudo, just kind of lost his title fight, and he kind of got granted that when he was coming back from, a really long layoff or retirement or whatever. So, I mean, he's kind of the best option in my opinion, but it's not really, like, it kind of sucks that
ideal.
this
I see what you mean. Like, it's like, it's out of all the options. I mean, I think Merab, like, out of all of them, it's too bad what's happened. Cause like, I don't even think that him and Aljo fighting thing was like a huge thing. Cause at least they had O'Malley fighting him. And like, I don't think it was that much of a logjam personally. I think people are kind of making a big deal out of it. I could see like now maybe them wanting to do that fight, but I don't know. I think like the guy hasn't lost like recently in a while. That should probably put him ahead, but yeah, like, there's also that history with Chito and Sean as well too, right? Where it's like, okay, Sean can get that win back, and they can sell it that way, right? So
yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah. What did you think of Chito's last fight against Pedro Munoz? He won. I don't think there's any debate there, but maybe not as dominant as I think people thought it would be.
The way that I view fights and the way that I think, fans view fights, I think is very different. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, I think that dominance is, maybe not most of the time, but I think dominance is way more beautiful and awesome as far as like a spectator of like me doing it and me wanting to learn from other people and me just wanting to, like see who's actually the best fighter. Cause that's what I'm looking at is like, oh, is this guy actually better than the other guy? And that means being dominant. And I would say that Chito beat him fairly dominant from what I remember. I know it was kind of a long time ago and I watch a lot of fights, but, I know that uncompetitive fights are super not entertaining, but that's not really the fault of the person that's, whooping up on the person, like you put the Lakers against, who's another basketball team, the Lakers, the Brooklyn Nets, say you put them against each other and it's supposed to be this awesome fight and then the Lakers blow them out of the water by 30 points. Like, that's not an entertaining thing, you know, and people definitely look to fighting to be an entertaining thing. And, you know, I know that that's not always the case, but I always think that it's super awesome when someone dominates the other person because it just shows how good they are.
I agree. Just quickly back to O'Malley and Chito. How do you see the rematch playing out just in your head right now? How do you see it going down?
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I think it's a lot tougher match for Sean than what people probably think. You know, I think that what Sean does really well won't work as good against a Cheeto. Like Sean keeps distance real well, and then he snipes people when they make mistakes. Cheeto's very good at not getting hit clean, like very good at wearing a punch. And I think that that's going to pose a lot of problems for Sean. I also think that Cheeto's not going to like chase the guy down, which could work in his favor or not work in his favor because he didn't chase me down at all, and it ended up him losing. You know, like pretty significant fight. So yeah, I think it's going to be a lot tougher and a lot closer of a fight than I think what most people are probably expecting.
Who would you give the edge to, though? Obviously, Chito had the first win. You know, O'Malley's the champ. Who do you think has the edge there?
Yeah, I don't really know, to be honest. Like I don't think O'Malley's a super durable guy. Like he breaks his hands in fights. He has broken his leg in fights, I think. You know, like from what I hear, he's kind of injured a lot of the time. So I don't really know, to be honest. I know that if you're going to fight someone as dense as Cheeto, who is a very durable guy, who does hit very, very hard, it's not going to be an easy task to, you know, take that guy out or win in any fashion if you're just not that durable of a guy.
What do you make of the fact that Cheeto's never been finished? And typically, I mean, especially in his last fight, O'Malley, you know, had to finish Aljo to get the fight done. Do you think that will play a role in the sense that Cheeto is a guy that's very tough to take out?
Yeah, certainly. Like I said, man, Sean's really good at sniping people. You know, like he snipes people from the outside, and he's really good at that. Cheeto's super good at not letting that happen. You know, Cheeto's game lacks in a lot of other ways where I feel like if Sean can overwhelm Cheeto the same way that I overwhelm Cheeto, then it'll be a favorable fight for Sean. But he doesn't really fight like that, so I don't know if he'll change anything or go in with a different strategy or what, but I think that if he goes with the strategy of like, let me keep space and try to snipe this guy, like I don't foresee that being the best route to success for him. And then if I'm Cheeto, I'm probably trying to, you know, like score some really hard stuff and take really big advantage of how durable Sean O'Malley I don't really think is.
How does your day-to-day change when you don't have a fight coming up? Like, I know you're training all the time. You mentioned the cross training and all that, but what do you do with all that extra time? Because I know, like, obviously you're not training the same way you would train for a fight coming up.
I don't.
Or is it the same? It could be the same. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same, to be honest with you, man. Like I don't enjoy doing really anything else except for going to the gym. That's like whether I'm training or watching or whatever, you know, just going there. That's where all my friends are too. So that's, you know, where I'll go hang out with my friends also. But, you know, I don't know. Every morning I spend probably like an hour and a half by myself in the morning, like either messing around on YouTube or reading or writing something that I'm doing or, you know, like making notes about what it is that I'm trying to do or different techniques that I'm working on and all of that stuff. So I spend about an hour and a half doing that, and then pretty much I train from about like 11 or noon to about 2 o'clock, and then now I'm going to PT, so I shoot over to PT, do that around like 3 o'clock, and then I do S&C around 4 and 5, and then by that time it's nighttime. So if I have another session at night, which I do 3 days out of the week, I'll go do that session, and then that's pretty much a full day. You know, like I know that it's a lot of driving around and a lot of going to different places to get different type of work, but it's pretty much just taking care of my body. And most of the free time that I get is in the hour and a half in the morning that I get, and then that's pretty much my day.
When do you eat? You mentioned 11 to 2. Do you just skip lunch or do you have it like before, or how do you do that?
I eat a pretty decent sized breakfast, and then I eat right afterwards. I'll have like a decent sized lunch. And then, yeah, I eat from about 2, or I eat at 2:30, and then I'll, you know, go straight to the other practice. So it may not seem like I'm doing a lot, but if you add in physical therapy and all the extra S&C stuff that I'm doing, because, you know, my training's a little bit limited, it makes for a really full day, actually.
Um, What was your reaction to hearing that USADA is leaving and you guys are getting a new program coming in next year? What'd you think of that? And what was your overall experience with USADA since it's going away at the end of next month?
I liked USADA. I thought USADA was fine. Like I never minded that they were knocking on my door at 6 a.m. Like on some days I would wake up and, have that like spins type of feeling because I would wake up in the middle of a really deep sleep. So that kind of sucked every once in a while, but I'd rather that than, people being able to cheat. So
Yeah.
I was cool with it. I knew that the UFC was never going to allow us to ever take steroids or do whatever. So I was never worried about them not having some type of plan afterwards either. I know that Jeff Nowitzki is an incredibly moral and really seems like a phenomenal guy who takes it extremely serious. Like if you talk to Jeff Nowitzki, the guy's just this mega professional and just extremely passionate about making sure that the sport is clean. And I knew that as long as Jeff was a part of the whole thing, like that, we were all going to be safe.
Yeah, no, I agree. What did you think of Islam Makhachev knocking out Volkanovski? I know it was short notice, but that was pretty incredible, being the first guy to finish Volkanovski in the UFC.
Yeah, that is pretty incredible. I wish that it wasn't on 11 or 10 days notice or whatever. That's always a bummer because imagine getting ready for something for 3 months or 2.5 months, and then the other guy is 10 days, like the odds are very much in your favor. So, impressive, but I wish that it was more on an even plane so that we could actually get a good gauge of, who was better.
What about him being ranked number 1 in the pound for pound list? I don't know if you care about that stuff, but he's got the top spot because of that win. I think because Jones is injured as well. What do you think of that, that he's in the top spot?
Yeah, I don't, all of the, like the GOAT talk, the pound for pound stuff, that's for, I don't really care, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's so subjective. I completely agree. And Islam's teammate, a guy you were supposed to fight, Umar Nurmagomedov, doesn't have a fight booked yet, and they are filling up all the fights right now. You see it. We just announced Song's fighting Chris Gutierrez, and we're seeing there's rumblings about Henry and Merab and all that stuff. Who would you like to see him fight? Just as a fellow fan in the division, is there a fight that kind of stands out for you?
Man, I'd really, maybe I know that they're really trying to push him, right? So. I know that I was the one that stepped up and said that I would fight him. I don't really know who else would do that, to be honest with you, because he is only 3 fights into his UFC career, like on paper, doesn't make much sense. But if he's that good, then he's that good. And if he's not, then he'll lose. So but I would like to see him fight someone tough, like I don't want it to be like a easy cakewalk fight. Like I'd like to see him fight someone tough so that we can actually get a real gauge on how good he is. And, maybe Jan when he comes back, maybe Song, I think would be. I was super excited for the Song and Jan fight. I thought that was going to be an incredible fight. So that was kind of a bummer that one didn't happen. But maybe one of those two, I guess. And then maybe like if they're really trying to push him, maybe even like a Sterling or the loser of Merab and Cejudo or something. So, yeah.
Fair enough. And what about you? Like you said, like obviously title shot would be the most ideal thing, and I think you have a strong case for it. Is there anyone you'd be willing to fight if the title shot wasn't next? Like maybe Aljo just to get that one back, although we're hearing now he might be fighting Calvin Kattar at 145. I don't know if you heard that the other day. What are some options for you? Like I know you'll fight anyone, but because you said you have to fight anyone anyways, but have you thought about potential opponents if it's not for the title next?
No, I don't care, man. Like I that's not a juicy answer and it's not a whatever.
No, I like the honesty. Honestly, I'd rather you say that than tell me something, that's just trying to appeal to the camera. Right. So
I got into the thing, man, to be the best in the world. And that's, I don't want it if I don't deserve it. So if they tell me that I got one more fight, then I'll just beat the next guy that I have to fight. So whoever that is, I feel like I've taken out a lot of the, I don't know what, I took out Chito, I took out Song, so there's not a lot of guys behind me that can really, that I can fight. So it's got to be ahead. So it's going to be a great fight, no matter who it is. I also have put myself in a really good spot. I think just in general, being on a 3-fight win streak against, I think people that are all in the top 8 or something. So that's a pretty big deal, so, I'm not worried about it, man. Like I just take whatever fight they give me. I don't really bitch about anything. And that's kind of the way that I just go about this sport, man, is it's a UFC show and I'm there to perform and prove that I'm the best. And as long as I keep doing that, then I'll be champ one day.
I don't think the timing would work out anyways, but has the Umar fight, has that ship kind of sailed? Like, would he need to get another fight before you guys would have that discussion about fighting again potentially?
I mean, if you want to talk about like a fair circumstance, I think that that's pretty fair. Like
Mhm.
if we were on the same plane, going into that last one before he pulled out, which we weren't, but I took the fight because I wanted the number one contender fight. If we were on the same plane then, and then I just racked a win against another really tough guy with a first round injury and still dominated, I don't really see us being really on the same plane anymore. I think that he needs, one or two more wins. I think that, him getting hurt was a bummer for him because I don't really know how many other guys are going to step up.
Before we go, how was the wedding?
Wedding was way more fun than I thought, man. I didn't really know how fun it would actually be, like I was like, we got to do all this ceremonial stuff. I'm very against anything disingenuous or corny or anything like that. So I was like, we got to like read these vows to each other in front of all these people and put on this like spectacle over, what's about something that seems intimate, like I've talked about that with fighting too. So I just don't like anything corny or anything like that, but it actually was super fun, it was just like a party with every single person that you love in life. So that was, not the way that I went into it. And then when I realized that that's what it was, I was like, oh, okay, like a wedding's pretty cool. I'm sorry for being against this idea for a little bit.
No, I completely agree with that. Okay, last one before we get out of here. I always ask you this. Any good books you're reading right now? I know we've gone over time, but I got to know because I'm always curious to see what's in your mind right now.
Yeah, I'm reading a book by like the sci-fi king. His name's Ivan Asimov. I'm reading, it's called The Gods Themselves. It's okay. I don't know if I would recommend it fully. It's a little bit weird. Like sci-fi books can get really weird. But yeah, I'm still gonna finish it and give it a good shot. But it's a little bit out there for me. So, but yeah, I guess if you're into sci-fi, I mean, it's of course not bad, but if you're gonna go sci-fi book, I would definitely recommend Dune. I think Dune is like one of the best books I've ever read in my life.
Cory, thanks for doing this. Again, we went way over time. Really appreciate it. Hopefully next time we talk, you're healthy, recovered, and got a fight booked. In the meantime, anything you want to mention? I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, so I'm kind of messing around on YouTube a little bit more. If you guys want to, go subscribe to that. I'm doing just post-fight breakdowns and then also like other technical things. I also have another instructional coming out probably here in maybe a week or two that's actually going to be on mental performance, which I think is like something that not a lot of people have, the resource to get. So I want to help people out in that way. So that'll be really awesome. So that'll be up on my website, CorySandhagenMMA.com, probably in a couple weeks or so. So